In this video, I'm going to show you how to make your own audio effects racks in Ableton Live. I've given away a few audio effects racks here on YouTube for Ableton Live, and they were all built in Ableton Live 11, but I've had a ton of people ask me if they'll work in Ableton Live 10 as well. Unfortunately, they don't. The two big reasons these racks don't work in Ableton Live 10 is because from 10 to 11, the effects within them have changed quite a bit. In Ableton Live 11, they updated a lot of the effects, including the reverb, the shifter plugin. A lot has changed within the effects themselves. And then also, Ableton Live 11 introduced the macro variations feature, which is essentially a way to make presets for your audio effects racks. So because of all of that, the racks that I built for 11 will not work in 10. But I want to show you how you can do this yourself because it allows you to unleash your creativity and make some awesome audio effects that are custom to you and your workflow and your genre of music. So let's hop into Ableton Live and build your own audio effects racks. This is going to be a pretty simple tutorial to get up to speed with audio effects racks. If you want more, please let me know down in the comments below. Alright, I hope you enjoy this. So I have this drum loop in here, and this is just to demonstrate so we can hear what is happening when we turn some knobs. Here's what it sounds like. Very simple. So let's start building a rack. You can start it with two ways. The first way is to double click Audio Effect Rack in the Audio Effects tab here in Ableton, and it'll show you this empty box. Or if you already have effects in the chain, say I have this EQ and I liked what I did, I could just hit Command or Control G, depending on which platform you're on, and that will put the effect in a rack and it will start the first chain. So let's start out here. We have an effect and it's in a chain and that's in our rack. You can build multiple chains and we'll get onto that stuff later, but all we're going to worry about is just one effect chain. And all a chain is just a place to put all of our effects within the rack. We're going to stick to one chain and make a cool multi-effects box. We have an EQ in here. Let's add something else. Let's drag a filter in here. And from there we can start to do some cool stuff. At the simplest level, the audio effect rack allows you to group effects together so that you can turn them all on or all off at the same time. So say I had some crazy effects going on here like this. And you don't know if you like the sound of it, so you can A/B it by turning this button on and off, and this will turn everything off. But we're going to keep everything on, and let's start doing some mapping. So we have all these empty knobs over here. These are called macros, and they're called that because we could actually map multiple things to one knob here. I'm going to start out real simple. I have this filter over here and I'd like to control the cutoff frequency. This is what it does. And I'd like to be able to control that without seeing the effect. So I can right click and hit map to macro 1. That will put this knob right here. I'm going to rename it here. Let's call it low pass. And let's put a color on it. All right, so now we have that knob over here on this macro. So that way, if we'd like to hide our devices, we could do that without even looking at that effect. That's already pretty cool. And now we can go even deeper. I'm going to hit this button that says Map. And this tab here allows us to set maximum and minimum values for the knobs that we're turning. So I'm going to set a minimum value at around 300 Hertz. That means that the audio cannot get cut off anywhere past that point. So if I turn my low pass knob, you see that it stops at 348 Hertz. Cool. Now one thing I love to do when I'm playing with filters is I like to move the resonance knob as I move the cutoff frequency. We can do this here with one knob. So we're in this mapping mode and everything's green. So that means we can map any of these things listed green to any of these macro knobs over here. What I do all the time is when I adjust the cutoff frequency of a filter, I also like to adjust the resonance. So let's try to do that with just one knob. Over here we see the resonance knob. I can map this to the low pass, and now you can see we're moving both things at the same time. But there's a couple things wrong here. The first thing is that there's way too much resonance. I don't like seeing that much resonance on my filters. I don't like that much resonance on most of the things I do. So if we look over in the top left in our macro mappings, we can actually adjust the maximum value of this resonance knob. So let's change that to about 80%. That looks a lot better to me. Now let's play with this a little bit as we play the drums. Pretty cool, but what I'd like better is if the resonance worked in reverse, so that when I bring the filter down, the resonance comes up. So let's do that. In the top left here in the macro mapping section, we can right click something and hit invert range. So that means when the frequency of the cutoff comes down, the resonance comes up. And you can see this in the graph here. Now let's play it. I instantly think that sounds way cooler and way more musical. So let's go on and build some more effects. The audio effect rack is only limited by your creativity. You can really do whatever you want within this way of working. So now we have a low pass, and that's great. Now let's create a high pass. So I have this EQ over here, and I can control the low frequencies like this. So let's map this to macro 2. Alright, got the high pass, let's name it. I would also like to set a maximum value of this knob here, because I don't like how high it goes. So let's set a maximum value of 500 Hertz. Now this knob cannot go past 500 Hertz. Nice. So I'm going to add a saturator here because I want to make some distorted sounds. I love this effect here in Ableton. This is the saturator, and let me play it for you a little bit. I love how it starts to add some grit to the sound, but what I don't like is how when I turn the drive knob up, it also gives me way too much volume and it could throw off the balance of my mix. So to account for that, I need to bring the output down by the same amount. So that when I turn the effect on and off, the relative volume is the same. We can do this with the audio effect rack. So let me back out my knobs here and let me put them back to 0. And I'm gonna map the drive amount to macro 3. So it's called drive for now. Let's rename it to saturate. Now you can see we're controlling that knob. Awesome. As I move the drive knob up, I'd love for the output knob to come down by the same amount. So let's do that here. Let's map the output to the same knob, and now we need to, as you can see, they're both moving the same direction. Let's invert the range of the output. Alright, let's see here. Now let's go back to our default. Now when you hit the delete key on any knob in Ableton, it'll take it back to its default value. And when I do that right now, you can see it's bringing my drive all the way down to -36, effectively killing all my audio. If I hit play right now, we got nothing. So let's change how this knob works a little bit. I'm going to open this map mode again, and I'm going to go over to the settings here in drive. Let's make it so that the minimum value of the drive is 0. So that means absolutely no drive is being added. In this case, 0 means we're not adding or taking away anything. As you can see, it's shown as the middle value on this knob here. So that's often called unity gain in some situations. Awesome. So the minimum value on this drive knob is at 0, and the maximum is still at 36. I think that's a little high, but we'll go with it for now. Now you can see as I turn this knob, the drums are going into the saturator, and an equal amount of volume adjustment is being applied. I'd also like to set a maximum value here so we can't distort the audio too much. Let's try 15 decibels. So we'll go maximum of 15 decibels here and a minimum of 15 on the output. As you can see, we're getting a little bit of a crunch here in the sound. Let's add some more effects. Now let's try affecting two separate effects in Ableton with the same knob. So I want to create a lo-fi type of effect here, and we can do that by controlling two separate devices here in Ableton. So I have this Redux device here, and I'm also going to add the vinyl distortion effect here for some grit. Let's map the downsample knob to macro 5 here. And now let's map the bit reduction to the same knob and the vinyl distortion to the same knob. So now we're controlling 3 knobs with just one knob. I'm gonna make a couple changes here for maximum and minimum that I'd like to see. And now here's what we have. So now you know how to control multiple parameters with just one knob in the audio effects racks. But what if you wanted to switch to a whole separate chain of effects altogether? We can do that here too. So I'm going to rename this one to chain 1 so we know what we're talking about. I'm going to create another chain, call that chain 2. So now we need to set the range of what we're controlling. So this thing up here is called the range selector, and this allows us to switch between different chains or blend two different chains together. I'm going to map this to macro 8, let's say, and now you can see that's right here, and we can control up and down, up and down. So I'm going to change the minimum and maximum value so we only go between chain 1 and 2. So let's put our chains in the range that we want. As I'm dragging this shows the chain and which range it's set to. So right now it's pretty binary. We just have 1 or 2. So let's hide the range selector and start putting some stuff in this second chain. In this second chain, I'm just going to put a reverb. So we're going to either switch between our first set of effects or our second effect. So right now I'm selected at chain 1, so I'm actually selected on this one. Let's change some knobs here. And I'm going to set the reverb dry and wet right here on this knob, knob 7. Doesn't really matter, just wanted to show you that. So this is what it'll sound like when we're selected on chain 2. Just full wet, just complete reverb. And now if I go back to chain 1, as you can see, the audio is now only flowing out of chain 1. You can also make it so that you can go halfway between two separate chains. Let's do that really quick. Now these are really small controls. I'm sorry if you can't see them too well. But let's change the range of 2 and allow it to go from 1 to 2. And then we drag this little fade knob here. Make it go like that so you see that little triangle. And do the same thing in reverse. So in this setup, we're kind of still getting audio from both chains. If we really want it to be a slow blend between the two effects, we need to stretch them out a lot. So let's go all the way up to 24 on chain 2 and set this blend here. And let's do the same the other way. So now we can try to get like a hybrid blend between the two. I'm going to change my minimum and maximum value on my chain selector to make the max 24. And now let's start moving up and down. So now we have just chain 1 where I have this low pass. And let's put some other stuff on here too. And we can start sending it to the reverb a bit too. So experimentation is key here. You can use this audio effect rack in a multitude of ways to be able to do parallel processing and also blending between separate effects groups. I really encourage you to play around and try to get some crazy sounds with it. One really powerful way to use audio effect racks here in Ableton is by creating 3 chains and separating your frequencies within those 3 chains so that you can start to do multi-band processing. Ollie Music here on YouTube did a really cool video where they split their audio into 3 separate bands, so that they can only put distortion on the middle band while keeping the high and the low dry. The possibilities really are endless. Let me know down in the comments below if you have any other questions on how to use these racks and how to achieve a particular sound. What I recommend you do is take your favorite effects, your favorite settings within Ableton, put them into a rack, and just set them up so that you can always go straight to that sound. Alright, I really hope that video helped you out. It's so powerful once you learn how to make your own audio effects racks in Ableton Live because it allows you to unleash your creativity and make a sound for your genre and your workflow. It can be super fun being able to tie all these different parameters to one knob, and you can often start to build some effects that are more powerful than expensive plugins out there. So I want you to tell me down below what effects you were able to make with this Ableton tutorial. I'd love to hear the craziest combinations of sounds, so please let me know. And if you need any production on your music, go check out my website at onechannelproductions.com, where I specialize in electronic music production for solo artists. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a great day.